Hey, welcome, Steeler Nation, to another episode of Steelers Realm Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, JT, along with a very special guest that we're going to introduce in a second. But to my left, out in the heart of Browns country, it's the famous TA. What's going on, buddy? How you doing this week?
Just survived another one, man. Just got back from the doctor today. He told me he's going to have to put me on blood medication pills because of all this stress I'm going through on Sundays.
Need some iron in your diet, brother.
Going to need some iron in my diet. That's why my cheeks are so rosy. That's high blood pressure right now, JT.
Is that what that is? Blood is.
That's what it is. Or the alcohol. I'm not sure which, but we're going to go with the blood pressure.
Go with that. On the other side of the state, New Jersey Dev. What's going on, buddy? How was your week, man?
Good. I mean, Penn State lost. They're 0-3 for the first time since 1983, so that sucks. But we got two other wins this weekend. So, but I'm more excited for our guest here this evening, JT. If you want to go ahead and introduce him.
Well, without further ado, 3-time Super Bowl winner, center for one of the best quarterbacks ever, on the San Francisco 49ers, and NFL and college football broadcaster, Mr. Randy Cross. Welcome, Randy. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to hear some
My pleasure.
stories.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Randy.
Without further ado, got a couple questions lined up, but kind of wanted to check and see what you've been doing lately. We, as a fellow podcaster, we're always kind of keeping our eyes on out there, and you have the famous Randy Cross podcast. Tell us a little bit about that and what else you've been doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to find. I've had randycross.com for the last, I guess, about 20 years or so. I've done various things, whether it was little side writing things or podcasts or, God, they weren't even podcasts back in the day. It was just crude video you happen to post. No, doing that. Been with CBS for the better part of the last 32 years since I retired. I retired in '89 after Super Bowl 23 and signed with CBS. I was with NBC for about 4 years when CBS lost the NFL there for a while. And then ever since, I did NFL for 20 years. And then the last 10 years, I've been on the college side, doing inside college football on Tuesday nights on CBS Sports Network. And then the games, do a game every week in a normal year. And we all know this ain't a normal year. So I've had some weekends off this year on occasion, which is very unusual, but done that. I'm sort of happy to say I've had basically 2 jobs since I left college. I played for the 49ers and I worked in TV. So I have no delusions. I've been pretty lucky.
That's pretty good.
That's awesome. So, Randy, I noticed actually you're originally born in Brooklyn, but obviously you grew up in Southern California. I've actually lived in Brooklyn for a little bit in the Williamsburg neighborhood. So I was just curious, what neighborhood did you grow up in Brooklyn, and do you have any memories from that time?
Well, not many memories. I mean, we left I was born in '54. We left in '58. Us and the Dodgers went to LA about the same time.
Nice.
And I lived about 2 blocks from Ebbets Field.
Oh, wow.
And my mom and dad always described our neighborhood as there was the Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn and there was the Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn, and we were on the street that was right dead in between those 2 neighborhoods. And not for, a couple of blocks away from Ebbets. And my dad was an actor, so when the TV business kind of uprooted and went to LA, that's when we left too. So
nice. So I know you played at UCLA, and your quarterback, which we'll get to in a second, was another actor. But you played with a dear friend of ours who actually helped set this interview up and connected us, Robert Mckenzie. And for all of our listeners out there, go buy Robert's book, The Chair, like the Ohio State University, The Chair, Volume 1 and 2 out there on Amazon and Barnes & Noble now. We'll put his links in the description of this episode. But you played for Dick Vermeil out there, and your quarterback was Mark Harmon at one point, like I had mentioned. Tell us a little about your playing days at UCLA.
Well, it was Yeah, I when I got recruited, it was I went to UCLA kind of on a challenge or a dare, you might say. It came down to UCLA, who had just finished. I think they were 2-7-2, and it was Pepper Rogers' first year at UCLA. And Nebraska was my other team. I was thinking about going to Nebraska, and they had just won the national championship. And there was something about A, staying at home, and B, trying to build something and a chance to win that really, really appealed to me. And I was also raised to kind of hate SC. So, hey, best case scenario, I got to go to UCLA. I was pretty happy. We were very good. I think my freshman year we were 9-2. My sophomore year we were 7-2-2. And my junior year, we were 8-3, and my senior year, we won the Rose Bowl and beat the number one team in the country, Ohio State. And that's why Dick Vermeil got hired by the Philadelphia Eagles, basically. But it was an incredible time. I tell people all the time, I'm a bit biased, but I mean the school's unbelievable. It's just an incredible atmosphere. It was very much a basketball school back then.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Wooden.
I mean, yeah, they won it 3 of the 4 years. They won the NCAAs 3 of the 4 years I was there. 8 of the 10 years they took the NCAA. That's how, I mean, I grew up with that. So, I mean, I played baseball up until basically early in high school. And, you know, I was a big Dodger fan, big Laker fan, big UCLA fan. So it was a perfect marriage, you might say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, you guys, you beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl that year, and didn't they whip up on you early on in the season? So you avenged that loss.
Yeah, I think it was 42-21, something like that. And at Coliseum, people forget. I mean, we both played at the Coliseum back then. UCLA wasn't. If you wanted to play in the Rose Bowl, you had to actually go to the Rose Bowl. They're lucky now; it's the home stadium. So it was. Yeah, I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. It all worked out perfect. I got recruited by Nebraska, UCLA, Texas, Notre Dame, Alabama, a bunch of different schools. Most of them it was football and track. I was a shot putter, and I was like the number 2 shot putter in the country. So I did that pretty well. And I figured if I played my cards right, I could play football and throw a shot, and I wouldn't have to practice in spring. Didn't work out that well, but it seemed like a good play.
Well, I mean, you ended up being an All-American in football your senior year, so you certainly could have took your pick of the litter there with schools. But Robert did want me to ask you, you guys spent a summer, he said, as ramp rats with Delta Airlines. And he wanted me to ask about a specific story of some guy that one day was mouthing off to you. You almost had to take out, I guess.
Yeah, I've got a pretty slow fuse. That guy's kind of lucky, to be honest with you. Yeah, I was tempted to stuff him in one of those cargo holds and see if we couldn't send him somewhere. But luckily, I had people around me like Robert that could kind of calm me down and set me straight. But yeah, it was an unbelievable experience. We worked basically the graveyard shift. I think it was 10 to 6 in the morning, and you know, we're crawling around the insides of those jets. And back then, I mean, even then at night, it's pretty damn hot in LA in the summertime. But you'd have to wear long sleeve shirts because the inside of those things, I don't know if I wanted to tell myself it was fiberglass. It was probably asbestos, but it was all of these lined areas inside where you'd throw all the bags. And I mean, literally, don't ever put anything valuable or fragile in a bag because they get thrown like crazy. And if you're really stupid, you put fragile on it, then they really get thrown hard. But
so you and Robert were just chucking stuff.
It was a fun summer. You just standing on the bottom of the ramp, throwing bags into airplanes.
All right, so I got to ask, which could you shot put better, a shot put or a bag of luggage?
Usually the shot put because it was very balanced. Very balanced. Those
very
bags,
balanced.
people don't know how to pack.
Well, speaking of packing, after UCLA, you didn't have to really pack your bags because the 49ers went ahead and drafted you in the second round in 1976, where you went on to play your entire 13-year career, winning 3 Super Bowls and making 3 Pro Bowls. Now, being that we're in the AFC North, which of course back in those days was the AFC Central, you went against one of our rivals, the Cincinnati Bengals. So what was it like winning 3 rings with the 49ers, but most importantly, beating Cincinnati twice?
Well, it was fantastic. I mean, the first time we beat him, it was kind of extra special because Paul Brown was still around, and Bill Walsh had been passed over for that head coaching job a couple of years before. He was hired by San Francisco in '79. I mean, the guy they hired was a great offensive line coach and a really nice man, Bill Tiger Johnson. But, I think Walsh had a chip on his shoulder, ever since he didn't get hired by them. And very much it was a pretty special thing. But beating the Bengals was nice. It was really nice. I mean, you talk about the NFC Central. I was almost a Cleveland Brown. On draft day, they called me.
Oh.
And they said, we've got the 14th pick. I think it was the 14th pick in the first round, and we'd like to know your feelings about being a Cleveland Brown. And it was the offensive line coach, a guy named Rod Humanick, who had been the head coach at a local college in LA before he took this job in Cleveland. And I'd known him from camps and stuff. And so my first reaction was too honest. In case you ever want to know, don't be honest when you talk to people about jobs. Because the first thing I said was, Cleveland, like in Ohio? It snows there, doesn't it? He didn't hang up on me, but I think that ended my very brief possibilities of a career with Cleveland. But it was fine for them. They drafted Mike Pruitt out of Purdue, and he played a good while for them there. And I lasted a little while longer and went to San Francisco in the second round.
And let's face it, you got to snap to Joe most of your career instead of Brian Sipe. So I think you got the better end of that deal.
It worked out pretty good. Yeah, I was in college. I played center and guard. In fact, my senior year, we had 2 offensive lines. And the first line, I was the right guard. And we'd go 2 series, and then the next line would come in, and then I'd change over to center. And so we rotated like that the whole game. And then when I got to San Francisco, I was a center for my first 2.5 years. And then the next 9 years, I was a guard. And then my last year and a half, I went back to center again. So it was versatility can have its pluses and minuses, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's for sure. CTA, they do have rotating offensive lines. I'm sorry. We had a big heated debate about how you shouldn't rotate an offensive line, but I guess it does work. They won the Rose Bowl.
Well, we had 9 guys that were really good. So
okay.
Out of those 9 guys, 6 played in the NFL, by the way.
Right, you got to keep those guys fresh in the trenches, man. I'm telling you.
That's true. But Randy, en route to that first Super Bowl victory, you were on the field for one of the most famous plays in NFL history. Obviously the catch. Can you describe to us and our listeners how that play transpired from your point of view, from start to finish?
Well, it was a play that actually the first time we had played them, we had scored a touchdown. First time during that season we had played them, we drilled them at home. And it was the first touchdown was that play. That game, we run it a couple of times. The play is called sprint right option. And we ran it. That play is designed for the quarterback to do a quick, short little sprint out, and throw the ball basically over the tight end. So when you see that highlight, you'll see the right tackle, Keith Fahnhorst, and I kind of block our guys and turn a little bit like we're going to do this, but he wasn't supposed to be that far out. So if they run too far, we just kind of stopped because they had to come back just to get to where Joe was. Well, we didn't know Joe kept running. And so that was pretty interesting. I had a great view though, a great view of great view of the play because I was looking right down the sideline when he threw that sucker. And every Dallas Cowboy fan insists that he was throwing that ball away, and they can believe whatever they want. I played off-season basketball with Joe and Dwight a lot, and Dwight could get up really good, and Joe knew it. So evidently he could jump a lot better and higher than Walsh. But yeah, that was a crazy play.
Insane.
Well, we just came off of playing the Cowboys, and it was a little bit closer than the Steeler fans would have preferred. But in your playing career against the Cowboys, did you ever lose to them?
Oh yeah, regular season, or before Bill got there, or when Bill early got there. I think we played them in 79 and 80 in the regular season, and they drilled us. In fact, one time was like 51-13 or something. But once we got good, no, we didn't lose to them. No. But Cowboys were not my favorite team growing up anyway, because I was kind of a semi-Rams fan, and they'd always beat us when I was a kid. Pittsburgh, funny enough, when I first got into the NFL, Pittsburgh was my favorite team. We went to the Super Bowl in the Coliseum against the Rams.
Oh wow.
79.
I got married on January 20th, 1979, and that night we got on a plane and flew to Miami to go down to the Bahamas for a honeymoon. But while we were there, we stayed in Miami for an extra couple of days and went to that Dallas Pittsburgh Super Bowl game, January of 79. So was that the third Pittsburgh or the fourth I think it was fourth Super Bowl.
The fourth one would have been the Rams. Third would have been Dallas.
Okay. Yeah. So we went to that Super Bowl, which is amazing. So we weren't very good. See, I was not that I'm a front runner, but even when I was playing, I liked good football, and we weren't playing any of it. So if I wanted to watch good football, I'd watch the Steelers.
There you go.
So you're secretly a Steeler fan. You can tell everybody, Randy. It's cool.
Okay.
Kind of half a Steeler fan, yeah. Well, yesterday, beating Dallas even more so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of Pittsburgh connections, what was it like being center for the pride of Ringgold High School? Greatest all time, Joe Montana.
Yeah, he was pretty amazing. Pretty special talent. Great guy too. Very, very kind of quiet in a lot of ways, kind of sneaky quiet. But yeah, I get asked all the time, okay, who's the best quarterback? To me, I like zeros. And he's in his 4 Super Bowls, he threw 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Wow. And he played in 4 and lost 0. So, just because you're there more often and you lose doesn't make you better. And New England fans don't like to hear that. But to me, that's the truth.
That's for sure. Out of the whippeal, it's a hotbed for quarterbacks.
So I do got a question, Ned. Why do you feel that Terry does not get the accolades that he should? Because he too has a 0 behind his wins.
Couldn't tell you. Maybe it's because the defense was so good. Kind of the opposite of what our teams were like. Our offense got all the attention, but our defense was every bit as good. I think that's part of it. It goes back a little bit to, Hollywood Henderson's, spot him the C and the T comment. And Terry did not dissuade those opinions, A, by the way he acted, and B, by the way he talked back then. So I don't know. It couldn't have.
Back then, he still talks that way now.
Yeah. I think it's crazy, to be honest with you, because Terry was, for people they just don't appreciate anything nowadays, especially if it didn't happen before. I want to say 2000, but probably go back to about 95. If it happened before 95, there's no point of reference. That's one of the more disappointing things about the NFL in general these days. And when I say these days, I mean since around 2095 or so. The players really aren't football fans. The players aren't, they're not lifers, which is kind of different because the guys I grew up with loved football and they were football fans. These guys aren't football fans. I'm not sure how much of them actually watch football. They might watch Madden, play the game, but as far as really football fans, they're just not that enthralled with the game. They just make a buttload of money for doing it.
Yeah. Most of them attend the Super Bowl week, but they never go to the actual game. Where I mean, you've gone to the game as a player when your team wasn't even playing. So certainly they don't appreciate the game much like players from your era. That's for sure. But
well, wait a second. I do have to go ahead and say something. I mean, you guys had a very formidable defense. I mean, you guys had Ronnie, you guys had Hacksaw, you had Dean. I mean, you even brought in Charles from the opposition there. I mean, so you guys had a really good defense.
By the way, we drafted Charles.
You're right. You actually did, and then he left.
He was traded to Dallas.
Yes.
Yeah. No, our defense was incredible. I mean, we definitely knew that. That was one of the most enjoyable things was getting a chance to be on an offense that good, that scored that much, and you'd be on the sideline, but you'd always get a chance to get up and stand on the sideline and watch the defense. And, Ronnie Lott, Carlton Williamson, Hacksaw Reynolds, Tina Turner, Eric Wright, and there's a long list of incredibly talented guys. I mean, we played Miami in the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 19 when Marino had set like every record in the world for quarterbacks that year. And our defense just took them apart and sacked him and beat him up. And nobody had even touched him that year. So, our guys up front, and we owe a lot of it to a guy named Gene Klein, who owned the San Diego Chargers back then. Because in his cheapness, he didn't want to pay Fred Dean. Then the next year, 2 years later, he didn't want to pay Gary Big Hand Johnson. The next year, he didn't want to pay Louis Kelcher. And we signed all those guys. Bill Walsh would trade for him and, a couple bags of kicking balls, and he got himself a great defensive tackle.
That's for sure. I mean, go ahead, T. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, because I got one more question. I mean, everybody's heard about Lawton removing his finger and this, that, and the other. Were you witness to any of that? And what was going through everybody's mind in that locker room, seeing that this guy was willing to just amputate a finger to come back out and play?
Yeah. Well, it was, your little finger, you got that first joint right there, that part of his finger. He had cut it in a jersey and kind of ripped it half off. And, they taped it up and everything else. And after the game, they were going to have to almost cast him. They're going to have to do surgery, on bone and the joint and all that and stitches. And he was going to be in a cast thing for a month or so. And he basically goes, I got no interest in that. Just cut it off. And that's what they did. They cut that sucker off. So he has got no tip on his pinky finger.
Who needs a pinky anyway? It's like a pinky
Doesn't have
toe.
time.
Yeah, it's overrated. It's overrated. Kind of like a kicker.
Yeah. So, speaking of Bill Walsh, though, I mean, you've played for some great coaches, Bill Walsh, Dick Vermeil. I know there's two completely different styles of coaching there, Randy, but who would you say was the better of the two coaches? And I guess more so, how did each coach individually bring different styles of play out of you or motivate you differently?
Well, they were very different style-wise. They were also not basically as advertised, I'll put it that way. Dick was a young, very well spoken, very outgoing, but he was tough as nails. He could use some salty language on you once in a while. Just a fantastic guy, and he really cared about his players. That was probably the coolest thing. In retrospect, when you look back, I think my mom and dad, God rest their soul, they were getting like Christmas cards from Dick and Carol Vermeil 25 years after I left UCLA when they were still alive.
Wow.
He was just unbelievable. He really, really cared about the people that played for him. He was very, very intense. As a result, you saw kind of what happened to him at Philly, a little bit of burnout, went to TV for a while. Every bit as intense doing TV, work ethic and everything.
Oh, yeah.
One of the nicest people I have ever met in my life, and maybe professionally, the nicest guy. Bill was a huge motivator. He had that very professorial look. You see the pictures of him in the white, cashmere sweater and the aviator clear glasses and sitting there and stroking his chin. That was such a crock. It was unbelievable. The guy, yeah, he knew how to motivate. He was a huge boxing fan. He again had a rather salty repertoire from the standpoint of a vocabulary, and loved to motivate. He could motivate people. He could make you do things you didn't know you could do, and that's probably the mark of all great coaches. But he was not a one size fits all kind of guy, and that's I would contend he could still today be really, really effective coaching. Where you see a lot of old school guys wouldn't probably fit into this game. He would fit today's game very, very well, which would be kind of ironic considering how much his offenses are still sort of run to some degree, his plays, and the fact that, the way that he built that organization is still mimicked to this day as far as the way he built it and the way he maintained it.
Well, even when you look at him, he's probably got the best coaching tree ever as far as disciples that have come out of that organization to go on and coach throughout the NFL and have success as well.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It was crazy. You should have seen, I'll tell you, if you ever want to see something funny, look at some of his early staffs. And he started in 79. If you go 79 to, 83 or so, it's almost like a who's who, whether it was Sam White or Mike Holmgren or, all these guys. But there's some real consistency there too, because like Dick Vermeil's staff at UCLA, we had Bill McPherson, who was the D-line coach for like 20-something years at San Francisco. Billy Matthews was there at UCLA, and he went to San Francisco. He was the running back coach there forever. And there were a lot of guys that were like that on his staff. But the coordinators were fairly consistent, more defense consistency than offensive consistency, because you get a really good offensive coordinator and somebody would want to hire them.
Yeah. And that's what Bill probably brought to the table, a sense of consistency, because didn't you have, he was the fourth coach in 4 years to start your NFL career, right? Fifth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Monty, Clark, Meyer, and McCauley,
Monty
right?
Clark, Ken Meyer, Pete McCulley. Fred O'Connor was the interim coach for the second half. He counts.
Yeah, he does.
78. And then Bill was the fifth. In fact, our first meeting at training camp, Bill's first year, he gets up there and he's going through some procedural things. And then he goes, you know what? I can tell you guys are sitting out there just thinking, this guy's full of shit. And if he's not right, and if we don't win, you're going, I'll just outlast him. I'll do what I did the last 3 or 4 guys. I'll still be here. They'll fire the coach and they'll bring another guy in. He goes, you know what? I got news for you. this is the worst football team in the NFL. If you can't play here, where the hell are you going to go? And everybody in that room is kind of sitting there going, might be a good point.
Mhm.
That's great.
So the good news is that you were able to go out on a winning Super Bowl team. Now, do you ever kick yourself in the butt for not sticking around just that one more year and getting the fourth ring?
Yeah, the fourth one. Yeah. I mean, I was working for the NFL Today as a sideline guy for the pregame show. The next year, we played Minnesota again in the divisional round. So I'm standing on that sideline for warm-ups, getting ready to do a report, and I'm watching them warming up. And for all I could think of was, God dang it, they're going to do it again. And so I was there for that. I was there for the NFC Championship game. And then I ended up doing right around a half of Super Bowl 24 with Jack Buck on CBS Radio because Hank Stram had laryngitis from doing too many speaking engagements the week of the Super Bowl. Lost his voice in there. I had to go in there and do the second half for him.
The utility guy.
There you go.
So with your broadcasting career, are there any good stories that you can share with us? And what was your favorite game that you called up until today?
Yeah, a favorite game. I can't tell you. And not that I didn't do a bunch of incredible games and playoff games and work on some Super Bowls and everything else, but in broadcasting, you do a game and you kind of flush your brain to get all those names and numbers and all that stuff out so you can cram some more in there a couple days later. And with that, when you flush your brain, kind of some of that goes with it. So you've got to almost see another videotape, or you watch it on TV, you watch a coach's tape and go, oh yeah, that was really cool. But I did some memorable games. AFC Central. I did the last game ever at the Municipal Stadium in Cleveland. It was, it was Cleveland Browns. I believe it was the Bengals actually, and I was doing it with Charlie Jones, and the little fella Costas was there in the next booth. So he was doing
The little fellow is Bob Costas.
Post game stuff. Yeah.
Anytime you bring up steroids in baseball, Bob Costas is going to cry. He's going to cry on the spot.
Yeah, with his fake Mickey Mantle baseball card in his pocket.
Yeah.
What was that? Oh, it was that game. And if you ever, it's on YouTube. I saw it actually a couple of weeks ago. They had brought in wrenches to the game, and they were taking these rows of seats, and they were throwing them over the dog pound onto the field. They were taking them and throwing them onto the field. But basically the officials said that the team that was going towards the dog pound, once they got to the 50-yard line, they had to turn everything around and go the other way because they weren't going to let anybody go towards that direction. Because they were afraid of what was going to happen. They were going to throw a row of seats at them or something.
That's crazy. All that for a losing team.
AFC North. Had another question. If you had a few moments, kind of,
sure.
Being in the center position, this wasn't really something we wrote down, but we've had Mike Webster's son Garrett on several times, and the discussion about CTE being a center and a lineman yourself. Just wanted to get your take on the way the NFL handled the CTE and is still continuing to handle that.
Yeah, I mean they're handling it now because they have to. They can't deny that it's there, which is, when I was playing, you didn't know anything was going on. I mean, it wasn't until, probably mid-95 that they started to get some information. Well, they started getting information. They didn't share a whole lot of it, but they started to get information about that. It was the end of about 2000 or so before it really got the attention. And sadly, some of those great Steeler linemen, starting with Webster, went down because of that. It's just really sad. It's something that's there. I'm not a huge proponent personally of football being played before high school, sort of as a result of the information I've garnered over these last several years. I donated my brain about 4 or 5 years ago to that Concussion Legacy Foundation up at Boston University, Chris Nowinski, and that's pretty much where Benjamin Olamalu, where he started, and all those studies came out of there. Now there was a Dr. Stern, and his whole group is still doing that, and it's something you have to be aware of. But people that are playing now are at least making informed decisions. We didn't have that luxury. We really didn't know any better, And so when I hear fans, because their go-to about CTE and all that is, well, it's a tough game. What are you complaining about, Bob? It's about having the information. So if you're a high school kid or you're a college kid and you're playing now, there's a chance you could have some issues. And the reason I donated my brain is there has to be a reason that somebody that played, I didn't start playing until the 9th grade, only because I was playing baseball and I was going to high school. My dad wanted me to go to a Catholic Cowboys high school, and I wasn't real excited about that.
Yeah.
But I said, I don't know anybody. He goes, well, you know what? Go out for football. You'll meet some people. So it wasn't for going to a new school, I would have never played football. But it's why does somebody that played 21 years start from high school on? And I don't have much discernible effects, or if any. And I played with guys that are so affected, it's ridiculous. Some of which played,
Really?
You wouldn't even know their names. They played little to nothing. They played a couple of games, maybe some preseason. But that's why I always encourage people that are around football, if you can, especially people that played at any level, high school, college, pro. It's cost you nothing to donate your brain. Find a place that takes them and do it, because they need the ones they can study that have CTE, but they also need the ones that don't have CTE.
Sure.
Just so they can find out what the hell what makes the difference.
Right. Definitely. Didn't mean to go down that road too far, but just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it, since we were thinking of the similarities there. And of course, our conversations, we've got to know the story about Mike Webster quite closely through his son. But getting back to Steelers there, we have to ask, kind of as an unspoken little bit of Steelers fan in the background there. But what do you think of them this year? I think Big Ben can get another ring.
Heck, 8-0. In this league now, that's going to be well, obviously it's as good as it gets, because you can't be better if you've only played 8 games. But, they're winning the games that you expect them to win, and they're winning the games that, you kind of go, I don't know. This like yesterday. Yesterday was a game you looked at and you went, man, they gotta kill these guys. But at least they ought to find a way to make sure they win. And yesterday was one of those ones they just found a way to make sure they won. Dallas being Dallas, but the Steelers at 8-0, Ben's going to be a great story. He's probably a future Hall of Famer, I got to imagine, though I don't know what that criteria is, because like you said, it's not always a uniform kind of thing. But that defense and the job that Mike Tomlin's doing this year is crazy. It's really crazy. I read a stat about him, I think it was this morning, about his year. I mean, he's never really had a losing year for 14 years now? Mm-hmm. Who does that?
No losing season since he's coming into the NFL.
Yep.
Yeah, nobody does that. I mean, last time I checked, I could be wrong. And trust me, if you say something like that, there's plenty of people out there, the metric nerds that'll suddenly go, no. Back in 1928, the Canton Bulldogs. No, okay.
There's a lot of them out there. I don't know if you saw that
Yeah,
stat
there are.
last night on Tom Brady and Joe Montana. What the heck was it? They had it on Sunday Night Football. And we'll wrap up here short, Randy. We won't keep you too much longer. But they had like the first here it is. Furthest into a career without being swept by a division opponent. Tom Brady made it 19 seasons until last night. Joe Montana made it 13 seasons. I mean, even some of these stats, it's like, where the hell does this stuff come from? Like, who comes up with that stuff? But
Yeah. More importantly, who cares? I'm serious.
I wanted to get your take on it, but there it is.
But don't you? No, be honest. Don't you think that when you first hear some of these stats, you go, how many years into a career before they were swept by a divisional opponent? Jesus. Well, I mean, how far down the list do you have to go? All that really means is they never played on any bad teams.
Yeah.
And as somebody that played on plenty of those early in my career, there's nothing better than nothing gives you more perspective when you win a Super Bowl than having had a couple of 2-14 years before that.
That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they got some dudes like holed up in a room with all the lights off, just cramming through stats during the game, trying to find stuff like that. So, some nerd.
Well, and like you were saying,
I love
the
it.
amount of data these days that's available for those games, and as an analyst, I'm sure, like you was mentioning, flushing your brain of all this game's stats and reloading the rest for the next game. I can certainly appreciate that. We do a by the numbers segment where some of those statistics. That's interesting stuff, but who cares?
Oh, it is. No, and it, it's all about, and it's right on the bottom of your screen. It's that crawl on the bottom, those lower third graphics. That's what it's there for. It's to make people kind of go, I never thought of that. And it keeps people tuned in, and that's what the joy of TV sports is all about, keeping that channel engaged.
Entertainment.
Ever had a really boring game where you just run out of stuff to talk about?
Really boring games. Yes. Yeah. That's probably the most challenging thing about being a broadcaster. And it's not, you always get the unbelievable last second, exciting, just fantastic high scoring. That's fun. Now it's those 43-3 games, and that whole and nobody scores in the last quarter, and they're just trading punts at that point. And you're going, God, could they? Is there a mercy clock here? Can they just run the clock or what?
Or calling the Bengals for the Browns in December.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Randy, we appreciate you joining us here. Gentlemen, you got any further questions for Randy before we let him go? Break down the Cowboys game?
No, I'm good. Randy, it has been a pleasure. I do got to ask you something. Are we ever going to get are we ever going to get to see you on the Head and Shoulders commercial, because you still got a good looking little mane going there. I mean, we had Troy Polamalu there. I mean, I think maybe your agent might need to give them a call.
That's right. I've been, actually it's my hair is so much shorter than it used to be, because for a lot of years I had it pretty long. But then again, for a lot of years it was dark. No, I've got to get my guys working on that. See if they can take advantage of this coif.
And if they can't, just let me know, because I'm only going to take 2%.
There you
go. TA vying for agent position. There you go. Well, thanks for hanging with us, Randy. Appreciate it. It was great spending time. Thanks
Appreciate it. Everybody out there, go download the Randy Cross podcast as well. The link will be in the description of this podcast to his website and the podcast. So thank you for joining us, Randy.
Thank you, Randy. Guys. Thank you.
Randy Cross.
All right, there he goes.
Cool guy,
He's-
man.
He's kind of a character. I kind of liked
Great
him.
stuff. Yeah.
Bob Costas, man.
The little guy.
Little guy was in there, you know. Little Bob.
Little guy.
Shit. So should we
Well,
hop
hey,
into
boys.
the game? Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Jim.
Let's dive into this mess that was yesterday. You know, I was telling you guys earlier before we got on with Randy that you know, I predicted a 40 burger, and then for yesterday morning, I think I had an epiphany and realized that even if we didn't play like we did yesterday, that there was no way that that was going to happen, just based on my thoughts, the way they would try to come out, control the game, time manage the game, and just own the time and the field possession. And boy, was I off. Let's put it that way.
We both were, JT. We both were.
So, you know, a lot of, I mean, if we're going to dive into this game, it'd have to be a lot of ugly. And I think even Tomlin admitted it in his post game pressers or whatever. But again, we don't get points for styles. We get points for W's. And that was another one taking us to 8-0. So I guess we'll take it. You know, if I was just to kind of say one thing about my overall ugliness on this, was that I was kind of disappointed in special teams play. We usually don't see all three phases of the team play as bad as it did at times yesterday. But, you know, I think with the special teams snafus and whatnot, I think that was definitely one of the ugly parts of the game. Boys, your thoughts?
It was all pretty ugly, that's for sure. I mean, ugly effort. Should we hit some positives at least before we hop into that? We'll do it real quick here.
Sure. Let's do a couple positives.
Yeah, 8-0, first time franchise history, obviously. Randy kind of already touched on this. 17 straight seasons with at least 500 record for Ben Roethlisberger. You know, he now owns the most career seasons without playing on a sub 500 team in NFL history. So easy schedule, right? Yeah. And Mike Tomlin also ties the NFL record set by Marty Schottenheimer with 14 consecutive seasons of a record of 500 or better to start a career. Big Ben 300. He registered his 68th career 300-yard passing game. Regular season, post season. It's not only a franchise record, but he passed Hall of Famer Dan Marino, who had 67 for sixth most 300-yard games in NFL history. Tia, you got another stat on Dan Marino there real quick, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yesterday was the 33rd comeback. I mean, tied him for fifth. I mean, at this pace, man, the way we're playing this season, he could finish second behind Peyton Manning at 43.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And hey, we rallied from second half deficits of 10 or more points in each of the last 2 weeks. We haven't done that in back-to-back road games since 1953. I got to give a shout out to Bob Pompiani for that stat. He's the guy that tweeted that out. Big game, Bob. So, and Minka was pretty positive too. The last 4 games, I mean, Minka saved us the past 2 games. But the last 4 games, 2 interceptions, 4 passes defended, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 1 TD. Pick 6 versus Cleveland. Red zone pick yesterday. Should have taken a knee. But
yes,
back-to-back weeks, he saved us the game.
Well, here's the funny thing about that, guys. First couple of weeks, we were complaining, where's Minka? But things looking pretty good. Last couple of weeks, things are looking pretty ugly. Guess who's back in the game? Minka. Maybe that's when we see Minka, is when things get ugly.
Yeah. Speaking of ugly, the special teams woes. Where to begin?
Yeah, well, pretty much covered that. Why don't we just focus on Boswell? Odd turn of events there, 2 missed extra points. And then the field goal was that it was an odd situation where there was a penalty. What was it? Pre-snap penalty on it, but he missed the kick at 54 yards. They made him re-kick. They marched it back 5 yards, made him re-kick and made it. Ended up setting a new Steeler record for the longest field goal. So that was cool.
59 yards, and he broke the previous record of 55 yards which was shared by Chris Brown, who did it in 2001, and Gary Anderson, who did it in 1984. I only know that because of our friend Still City Star, almost simultaneously as the ball went through the goalpost, posted a video of Gary hitting that 55-yarder back in 1984. So all our fans out there, go check out Still City Star on the tube.
I think the thing that was most concerning about the kicking game is Kennedy. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anybody jump Kennedy the way Dallas was jumping him. I thought Polamalu had come out of retirement.
Some people were saying that was illegal.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about that
It's only legal if he uses the other player as momentum, but if he clears them, it's legal. And he clearly cleared them.
Yeah, I mean every kick should have been blocked. The guy was back there on every kick. So here's my question though: should we be worried about the Boz? I mean, the dude's a bit of a head case. I mean, hopefully he doesn't return to that 2018 form where he went 13 for 20 on field goals, 43 for 48 on extra points, battled demons the whole year.
No, because I don't think that was Boz's fault last night.
He's fine. But, a part of the special teams that did kind of bother me a little bit, that lateral across the field, but overall just giving up big yardage on returns. That's unlike the Steelers. I haven't seen that all year.
That's 70
two inopportune times.
The lateral wasn't what concerned me. I thought that was just good coaching on Dallas to come up with a good trick play.
That was trickery, tomfoolery. Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. Exactly. I mean, that was a good play.
Who threw the lateral? Here's a question. Trivia question. Who threw the lateral?
It was Cedric.
I can tell you.
It was Cedric.
Cedric Jr.
Cedric Jr.
Yes, it was.
Everybody remembers Cedric Sr. He made those big plays in the 2005 playoff run, and then he beat the shit out of his ex-girlfriend at Patron Mexican Grill.
Yeah.
But the one that really got me the most
that he didn't get booted. But anyhow,
the one that got me the most was when we lined up on the 50. You knew the pooch kick was coming. You knew we were going to coffin corner kick it. How do you mess that assignment up to allow him to scramble out of there for 64 yards? Bazooka Joe should be fired this morning.
We should call Orpheus, man, and get Orpheus's take on that.
Yeah, what sucks is on that punt return, that was Barry's longest punt of the day, 62 yards. And then Boz, that was his best kickoff of the day. I mean, he hit touchbacks and whatnot, but he kicked it perfectly after getting an extra point blocked and missing one. So they just all came at the worst possible times.
Yeah, that's a great call. All right, another concern coming out of it. Obviously, we won the game and we came back and everything, but hey, let's face it, it wasn't easy. And, running game, where was James Conner and where was that control? And then going for it on 4th and 1 instead of kicking the field goal. Big controversy of the day, probably one of the bigger controversies of the day as far as on social media and talk radio. But let me get your guys' thoughts on that.
Oh, I 100% agree with the call to go for it. I said they need to go for it. The kick would have been blocked. The guy was in the backfield all day. What Steelers fans should be more upset with is the type of play call and then bringing James Conner, into the game for, that was his 3rd straight carry in that sequence. And he hadn't been in the game since 46 seconds left in the first half. So that's what kind of makes me more mad is the play call. But fans have been all over Tomlin. I mean, they were even on him for having a safe return and Joe Hayden catching a fair catch on a safe return punt at the end of the first quarter, bitching about how Ray should have been back there. It's a safe return, But I'm more upset with the play call and design.
Yeah. Well, and let's face it, on the one with Joe Hayden, we were out there in our base defense because we at the time thought they were going to go ahead and try to go for it.
Exactly.
And they called out of it and we sent him back. Joe did exactly what he's supposed to do. But on that 4th down and 1, I do agree with you, Dev. You cannot go ahead and bring in Connor, who has not been in that whole entire 3 quarters at this present time and moment, and watch them load up the box because everybody, including half the stadium, which By the way, Steelers fans, thank you for showing up. That was beautiful during COVID. And run the ball. You just can't do that. If anything, a little tomfoolery, a little trickery, a little razzle-madazzle, something.
Loosen them uppery.
Shenanigans. Did somebody say shenanigans?
Shenanigans. That play was a shenanigan.
Fuckery.
Sorry about that, folks.
Okay.
This is a family rated show.
Yeah, but no running game, and then we couldn't stop the run.
Right. That was disturbing too. For now 2 weeks in a row, guys. Is there a reason to be concerned about that?
No.
Yeah. Huge concern.
No.
Yeah, dude.
No.
We
No.
Alulu being out last week. We're like,
TA's
okay,
TA is going to play their tired card.
Absolutely. I'm going to, first of all, last week
so predictable.
Last week was designed. First of all, last week was designed. We knew that they had three potentials. I mean, basically, you've seen the modern wing offense ran last week, and we had to stop the ball. It was a shell game. So we knew we were going to give up some yards. This week, let's face it, our defensive line, we didn't have Alu. We had Bugsy in there. We just called Carlos Davis up. We just had Cam, who just came off of an injury. That's your trenches. The only healthy one on that line was Tuitt. And then you had Bud playing all sorts of different positions. You had Spillane that we were covering for him when we were going in the 5 linebacker. I mean, if you look at the overall stats, absolutely. Did we keep Zeke shut down? Yes, we did. Did we go ahead and let Pollard sneak out there a couple of times? Yes, we did. All in all, was it the run defense that caused us that game? Absolutely not. What it was not having any film on a quarterback that we didn't know until game day who was starting. And they came out and played soft. Porous, as I heard it mentioned a couple of times on TV. It was a porous middle.
Very.
Dude, you're talking about Gilbert, dude. He's the 8th MVP, the reigning 8th MVP. There's plenty of film out there on him. I mean, he had 3 carries for 28 yards. He's looking like friggin' Michael Vick out there. It's concerning because you can't blame the 3-headed monster now, because if they were running the triple wing, the modern wing, as TA put it, then Dallas was running the single wing up the gut, and they gained 144 yards on the day, 256 last week. I mean, 9 rushing first downs, 2 R2. 144 yards to R46. I mean, time of possession, it's concerning.
Well, again, a lot of chatter about this game today was, and leading up to it, was this the trap game that they were going to have to trying to have a letdown off of? Do we need to lose one of these games like this? Was this the one that everybody was fearing? TA and I thought so at the beginning of the season, even, when they were healthy, but, I don't know. I think, true on the positive side, true teams step up when it gets right down to it. And for 3/4 of the game, or at least the first half of the game, again, just too soft. And then I think Big Ben took it on his shoulders. He took his earpiece out again, drew a few up in the sand, and kept things going there. And
I think he actually took it on his knees.
You're gonna fucking say that.
Yeah, he did.
Both knees are injured. Hell, if you're gonna injure one, injure both of them. Screw it. Injured Ben plays better.
Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that. I think he thrives on that too.
Yeah.
I think he thrives on that. I think that's something else. Is like, I'm going to pull through it, and it hurts, and I'm a prima donna, but I'm going to go ahead and pull through it, and I'm going to be a superstar. I'm more of a star because of it. And so there's my challenge.
Yeah.
So let's move ahead to. You think we have a loss in our near future? If we were to pick one game we were to lose to, guys, let's round the horn real quick. Who would it be?
Yeah, we have to lose at least once because nobody wants to touch that 16 or now.
My
No, we
UPS
don't.
driver.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do, dude.
No,
Nobody
we
wants
don't.
to touch that 16-0 Dolphins record. Then you got friggin'
Why
Mercury
not?
Morris working his magic, coming out of the friggin' woodwork
Look, they're
and
all
putting a
dead.
spell on us.
They're all dead. Get over it. It's time for a new generation. Get over it. Absolutely.
We still
Let's
have
make
teams ahead of
history.
us, boys.
We do. And it's not going to be
Every
easier.
one of these
'Cause
teams
let's-
can beat us.
Oh, yeah, because let's face it. We have a target on our back every Sunday from here on out. Every team we play, no matter if they're 0-8, 0-16, whatever it may be, they are going to come gunning for us. One, because we're undefeated, and two, because we are the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. Well, I think we
All
need
right,
to lose
guys.
at least once to remember that feeling. And I'd rather us lose like to the Washington or Colts or something. Maybe even lose twice because you can't go into the
Jags.
playoffs undefeated. And preferably a close loss, too, so they remember that feeling.
One that doesn't hurt us. A non-divisional game. One that doesn't hurt us. I don't know. Something about that Jags game. Bills. At Bills. Boy, they were tough yesterday, too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
let's
get
look
into
at-
how we fared on
Let's look
prediction.
at one more thing
Go ahead,
before we do that.
Good,
All
TA, don't answer his question again, but keep talking.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Because it's not about answering the question. It's about staying
Who do you prefer to us
positive.
to lose to?
I don't prefer losing nobody. I don't want to lose
Dude.
nobody. I want
We
to
were
roll
lose
this
one,
train. I want to roll this train clear to the station, baby. Waving the flag, coming out victorious. I want to make history. Plain and simple. It's time to make history. That's a record
Okay.
that's been in the books for too long.
Okay. So if you were to lose to one, though, who would it be?
It ain't happening.
Okay. It would,
I don't
if
want
you
to
were.
pick that.
If they were.
It's a hypothetical question, man.
Hypothetical question: the Cowboys.
Okay. Well, we already picked that. So already knew that was one.
There you go. There you go.
Speaking of Cowboys, how do our predictions do, JT?
Well, I'll tell you who came the closest was the boy wonder, man. He was where was it? He was the actual score. What was the actual score? 24 19. Boy wonder had 24-17. Holy cow. My 40 burger was not even close. But the Cowboys score, I had 41-17. Dev, him
Yeah.
way out there, 45-6. TA with a over there, 35-27. So I'd have to say the boy wonder got that one.
Tune in on Thursday, folks, when the boy wonder picks next week, and he takes over Dev's generic lock of the week.
Generic. It's degenerate. Generic.
Degenerate.
He's TA's thinking the French version. It's generic.
Generic.
Who's your generic MVP, TA? Who's your big homer pick since you can't pick a loss?
Oh no, I tell you what, I got to give it to Ben. I'll give it to Ben.
There's a generic pick.
There's my generic pick. I'll give it to Ben. You got to go ahead and beat him up a little bit. He come back after that, and he was flawless. As JT says, he carried him on their shoulders. So to Big Ben.
Can't argue that one. Dev, go ahead, man.
Oh, I'll go.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I got Cam Hayward, not because of his impressive stat line. 4 tackles, 3 quarterback hits, half a sack. That was a crazy sack at the end there, too. But because of his false start penalty on that 54-yard miss by Boswell to move it back to 59 yards. And ultimately, that won us the game because the Cowboys would have beat us by a point.
Difference in the game.
And help Boz set a franchise record.
Help him set a franchise record.
No, that's right. I guess an inadvertent MVP in that regards.
But that half a sack, though, that was just a half a sack that he registered. He manhandled Gilbert down there. He grabbed him by one arm, drug him down there. TJ got to the game late. They only gave him a half a sack.
Yeah, they only gave him a half a sack. I mean, TJ's going to get paid off of those sacks, so I'm sure Hayward split it with him. We are not looking really at his Hayward stats in terms of paycheck.
All right, JT, give us your MVP, buddy.
You sure it's okay? It's okay now?
I'm positive. Just this minute, though. Dev, don't say a word. Drum roll.
He's false positive.
Reason Cam only got half a sack is because he only used one arm.
Oh, that's right. That's a new rule this year.
It's a new rule. Yeah, the one arm half
it's a
sack.
New rule. Right. It's the one arm half sack. Oh, thanks, JT.
Yeah, you didn't see that in the rules.
Yeah, I think that's on like paragraph 24, subsection C, line 2A.
Yeah, in the COVID addendum.
Thank you. That's important.
Look it up. So
Dude, you better hurry up and say your MVP here.
My MVP. Before they're going to shut us off here. My MVP was Juju stepping up, big time combative catches again. Almost took it in again. 93 yards, had a TD, 6 out of 7 as far as catches to targets. Plus he can dance.
Oh yeah.
So he's got the dance down. So
Almost
I'm
pulled
giving
off
it
that.
to Juju. He key times. I always say this. I always remind my dad that I say this too. When you need a big time play, you go to a big time player, and I think that was Juju again as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 4 of his 6 catches went for a first down or a touchdown.
Yeah.
So he almost danced on that star.
I'm kind of glad Connor stopped him.
I wanted to see it happen. But hey, he drew a penalty running out there. He drew the penalty on that.
Could have turned ugly.
They returned the kick on, but all right.
Well, boys, we have yet to see 60 minutes of football.
That's right.
And we are 8-0. Can you imagine what happens when we play 30? And then 45
minutes.
Oh, we better play 60 minutes next week because we got Slinging Joey Burrow coming up.
So tune in, Steelers Nation, to hear how we're going to break down the Cincinnati Bengals and their rising star that will fall next week.
Oh, by the way, little side mention there, Vanimal on the COVID list. Also, Cleveland Browns listed on the COVID list today, Mayfield.
Oh, shit.
Are you trying to tell us that Vanimal and Mayfield have something going on?
No, well, I don't know.
I mean, the concerning part about Vanimal is that he was on the team playing.
Yes, he was. And him and Big Ben hang out a lot. So
stay tuned, Steeler Nation.
As Josh Dobbs starts against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, shit, don't say that.
All right. Yeah, I know somebody was hoping they would have seen him when Big Ben got his knees hurt, huh?
But he wasn't even in pads.
The great Casey.
Yeah.
His man Dobbs.
Yeah, he's like, Dobbs is like Big Ben's assistant. Big Ben likes him. Dobbs got that NASA education. Flying rocket ship.
There's nobody that can carry a clipboard like Dobbs.
Oh man, perfect form. He just dominates that tablet. Just dumbs it down for Ben to understand.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean, his brain is so big and he doesn't have eyebrows, so like the thoughts processes aren't interrupted by the eyebrows, or misconstrued by like having a bunch of hair on your head. So, it's a big NASA brain.
By the way, not to speak about eyebrows, but seeing that we've never seen him before, I was almost ready to give Tomlin a call, wondering where the aviator glasses were when we were losing, because I was pretty sure that was what was breaking our mojo.
Yeah, could have been. Maybe
because
we'll see him.
I'm thinking it was because he got fined.
Oh yeah, he got fined. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty hard to put those aviators on over the mask, man. It gets steamed up. So there you go.
It's kind of what I'm thinking.
Aviators or $100,000 fine. Take your pick.
I want Aviators in a win. He can keep dealing out 100,000. He's got it.
All right, Steeler Nation, as we attempted to do once already, let's turn our attention coming up later this week on Thursday. We'll dig into the Bengals game. See how our Joey Burrows will fare in our matchups. So thanks for hanging tough with us. Randy Cross, thanks for your time again. Great to speak with you. Steeler Nation, have a great week, man. Careful in the hot tub. We'll see you next time. We're out.
Steelers Nation, don't get upset. Don't get mad. We're going to have many more of these games to experience. Ride the ride. Train is heading to the station.
What fucking station?
Super Bowl!
All right, folks. Go check out Randy Cross's podcast. Thanks for joining us, Randy. His links will be in the description. We'll catch you on Thursday to break down the Bengals game.